I'm done. I'm done.
She's tired. She's just now starting to sleep again. Something she was taking wouldn't let her sleep. She was up all hours of the night. Joey cannot be here. She was here yesterday or something. And what's it called? How's Dan, Lisa?
She's gonna have surgery Tuesday.
What are they gonna do? Put pins in it or something?
What did she say? I forgot what she said they were gonna do, but, she doesn't have a time yet. But, anyway, yeah, that's what they're gonna be doing, just doing something. Cause they said that, she may not get, her grip or whatever back if she doesn't have the surgery. She's got a better chance of having the grip or whatever it is with the surgery than not. So she opted to have the surgery. So,
What do they do to it temporarily? Just put it in a brace or something?
well, she had a splint, and then she went Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember. Anyway, she went and they put it in some kind of brace, but she can take the brace off to bathe. So,
I'm sorry it turned out to be that bad.
yeah. Yeah, we're gonna get her a skateboard for Christmas.
Oh, what, skateboard?
I told Nick, I said, you know, I said, we need to, find online a skateboard and take a picture of it and have it printed out and frame it. Here you go, Dan, this is your Christmas.
Well, you know, whenever that happens, I was thinking about that when she called me. You know, last time I broke the bone.
Speak of the
There you
devil.
are.
Yeah, the devil come in.
Uh-oh, hi there.
Hey, Lisa told her she's gonna have surgery.
Yeah, we hate it.
I was telling her, you know, if you do something serious, nothing ever happens. But as soon as you fool around, then that's when you break something. The last time I broke a bone, I was playing wiffle ball with the kids at school, you know.
Yep. Hello, there they are. Hey.
I lose football players.
Jake was right there.
Well, it's actually Christopher's son's fault.
Yeah, he started it.
Yeah, but you can't.
Yeah, he said
You
that.
can't back down the kids when they can do something, you know. I mean,
No, it's, his son wanted a skateboard for Christmas, so we done looking for a skateboard. So that's how all this came about.
Yeah, because shortly after that, Jake went and got a skateboard. And it was just calling my name. I mean, I did look, skateboard a little bit.
We'll get you your own.
That's quite all right. And Jude was up, and Jude got on it, and it did the same thing to him. And so then he got back on it today, and I said, "Go right ahead, You'll be in the same predicament."
Then you just get you one with a seatbelt.
That's why I'm with a foot belt.
I've seen them on River Street. Some SCAD students have them that have motors.
Yeah.
And it's a big wheel,
Well, that's a different one.
and you can, it balances you.
It's got just one wheel in the middle. Just electric.
Yeah, I've seen them with the thing in
Yeah.
blue. That'd be a cool way to get quiet.
Oh.
No. No, they were gonna come earlier, but Cody, had a problem. So anyway, they're supposed to meet us here and then come over. Supposedly. We'll see.
No, Donna's been making today my least favorite Thanksgiving thing. That giblet gravy stuff. She just loves it. So does Dad. You know. But see, what I call it, she hates what I call it. I had an aunt. She's passed away. But she was raised in the country by sharecroppers. But, you know, mother, but not with mother, because she was the oldest. Mother was the youngest. And then she left, and it was very important that everybody knew she was a city person now. You know, and didn't do that country stuff anymore. But as she got older, she moved out into the country, and she was the expert on all country stuff. She bought a turkey. I think it was the first one she'd ever bought. And you know, you pull that stuff out of it, you know, well, you pull the neck. And she was holding that, but she didn't know what to do with it. She said, I didn't know I'd have to cook its goozle. And so every time Donna makes that stuff, I call it goozle soup. And she hates that.
I heard a lot of people cooking that inside the turkey and they didn't know to take it out.
Yeah.
They thought it
That's
was the
really
stuffing.
gross.
You know, they thought it was the stuffing,
Gross.
you know, that it was already made, you know, put in there.
That's nasty.
Yeah, well, it's just some little parts of the animal that we weren't intended to eat. And that's part of it.
Well, back years ago, you bought a whole chicken, they always put his gizzard and things like that inside.
Inside, yeah.
Yeah, they don't even do that.
They don't do that anymore.
Thank goodness.
No.
All you had to do was reach in and grab and pull it out,
They don't want it.
fry it up, feed their dogs.
Or throw it in the trash. Or just leave it at the place, you know. Leave it in Claxton. But anyway, she's making goozle soup. The dogs love it. They love the smell of it.
Oh my God.
Dad loves it. I've tried it, putting it over dressing and stuff.
Well,
All you do is cook it down, chop it up, put it in the gravy, put boiled eggs in the gravy.
Well, I don't know how it's done. The celery and
It ain't like gross.
it is gross. All right, let's see. Dad, do this word prayer for the start.
Let's pray. Our Lord, most gracious and heavenly Father, we thank you for this privilege we had to come together and worship you. We ask, dear Heavenly Father, that you be with us this evening and help us to hear and to learn of your word. Help us to be able to put it into effect in our lives. Be with all of us, dear Heavenly Father, for whatever needs we have. Also accept our praise for the goodness that you've already bestowed upon us. Be with us now as we go into this service. Help us to study your word according to your word and learn from it. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, to introduce this next topic here, I need to ask,
May I ask where we at?
Matthew 6, beginning in verse 7. So I need to ask, what is meant by the term, or there's a term, two-word term, throne room? What is that?
You think,
you what now?
The throne room
Oh,
of a country,
Rules.
okay?
what the Lord say?
What's in there? It's in the title. What is a throne?
Big chair.
More than a, I mean, physically, yes, it's a chair, but more than a chair, what is it?
king's seat.
Okay, he sits on it, but what does it mean when he sits on it?
He's got all authority.
All power and authority of what? Like if it's the throne room of, it's not a good example, but of England.
He
Maybe
had all
not now, but
authority of England.
before, when Elizabeth ruled or George III ruled, what was the throne room? What power rested in the throne?
How much people they have.
Just about total.
All the power of England was there. I mean, if whoever was sitting on the throne, and I'm teaching it right now, that's why I used England, but if Elizabeth I, not the one now, but Elizabeth I, the golden age, if she's sitting there and she makes a proclamation from that throne, what happens? It's done. I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, if she's there wearing the crown, holding the scepter, sitting on the throne and says, this is going to be done, then it will be done, or we will be killed. I mean, it's treason not to do it. In the United States, do we have anything like that? I mean, we made a big deal back in the 1700s about not having stuff like that, but do we have anything that takes the place of the throne room?
Oval office?
I would say the closest would be, Supreme Court maybe.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't really think of that, but yeah, that would work. What she said was the Oval Office, which is what I was thinking of. But yeah, the Supreme Court, when they sit in those chairs and they make that decision, that's it. With the president, and our president's Oval Office used to be in one place, but now notice our president's Oval Office in the past 30, 40 years has been everywhere. President Trump has made several decisions and signed several bills into law from Mar-a-Lago. President Obama made a lot of decisions from his home in Hawaii and signed things into law from there. And President Bush from Crawford, Texas, and things like that. But what I'm saying is, so wherever the president is and deems to be, and it's all kind of contained in the Oval Office. Now, let me ask you this. It seems kind of absurd. It seems kind of silly, but how many of us will ever expect to be in the Oval Office or wherever it may be?
Probably not.
Well, in this room, probably none of us, but, so far as we're concerned, I think a couple of people from the Georgia State Government have actually been there. Brian Kemp, I know has, he's been there. Probably is fixing to go again. But they've been there. I've never been. How many of us would ever be in the throne room of England? Even though the monarchy there isn't, as big of a deal politically, it's a very big deal ceremonially anyway. But how many of us would ever be there?
Odds are about 100,000 to 1 that you want,
Would.
or would.
Yeah, it's not going to
Go the
happen.
wrong way.
Now, why have I've spent all this time on this? Well, if you think of those authorities, the President of the United States, Queen of England, the Premier or President of France, Prime Minister of Germany, I will never meet these people and I will never be in their presence, more than likely. However, look at all of those places and how much authority exists in those places. Is there any authority over that?
The Lord's always authority over everything.
God. It'd be under God. And yet, even though we're not welcome and would probably be shot if we tried to get into any of those places, these throne rooms here on earth, can we enter the throne room of God?
Yes. Anytime you go to prayer.
Every time you pray, you do. I mean, every time you pray, you enter. It's kind of ironic to me that I work and pay taxes to support my government, but I'm not welcome there. I mean, seriously, I can send an email to the White House and it will be read by someone there. I can send a letter to the White House and it will be read by someone there. And I'm assuming that I can do a hashtag on a tweet and it will, because that's a big deal with the White House now is Twitter, and it will be read somehow, but I'm not welcome there. I can't talk to any world leader at all. I can maybe go through their surrogates in such a way and it might get to them.
Odds are against it.
The odds are against it, but at least there's a possibility but I can go to the very throne room of God often. And not only can do it, I am encouraged to do so. That's the ironic part about it. Now, he's talking about in verse 7 and 8, don't make prayers into a show. I'll just summarize it into that. When you pray out loud, don't make your prayers into a show. Don't make people know what you're doing. Don't use endless repetition. And like I've told you in the past, I have seen people in church services turn their prayers into sermons. But beyond that, and we've already talked about that, Jesus says, pray then in this way. All right, now, pray then in this way. If I were invited into the Oval Office, would I dress a certain way?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't get to go then.
I probably get good anyway.
No, but if you were supposed to. And again, I'm not cutting this down because the people that do get to go, for the most part, these are people receiving like the Presidential Medal of Freedom or the Congressional Medal of Honor. These are people that have earned their right to be there. But is there a way that you would have to dress? And is there a way you would have to act?
Yes, definitely.
And would there be somebody saying that when the president comes in, you're never supposed to do this or that or the other, or when the queen comes in, you never do this or that? And, yeah, there would be. So when Jesus says, pray then this way, he is telling you, when you enter the throne room of God, do so in this way. Now, I have heard this said, and this is called the Lord's Prayer. And our preacher back home made a big deal about it. I'm not sure I'm going to make that big of a deal about it. Instead of calling it the Lord's Prayer, which it really is not, it should be called the model prayer because Jesus really isn't praying this. He's telling them how to pray and showing them how to pray. Is it worth that big of a distinction? No. Let me read it through once, even though you probably can recite it. And I'm going to ask you a question critically of it. Our Father, who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Now, some things just don't sound right. Let's just say them in the King James. So I'll try to read it without doing it. Our Father, who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from evil. There is one line of that we cannot pray today. Which one is it?
Kingdom come.
Thy kingdom come. Your kingdom come. Why?
It's already there.
It's already come. It's already come. It is the church. Now, the rest of it, and you can substitute that for anything you like. But our Father who is in heaven, what does it mean to be hallowed be your name? What does that word sound like? Hallowed. Halloween, doesn't it?
I thought hallowed means like extreme high praises.
Holiness, yeah.
Holiness.
It does, and that's where we got the word Halloween. Because Halloween, the hallow part, is not evil. It's the Catholic tradition. throughout history, the Catholics will beautify people as what? Saints. And there's a big deal about becoming a saint. Well, after so many centuries went by, there were so many saints, and they all had a day. And so instead of making sure that all of them have a day out of the calendar, they made a holy, holy day for all saints, which was November the 1st. That is called All Saints' Day in the Roman Catholic calendar. It still is today. It is a very, very holy day. It's called All Saints' Day or All Hallows' Day. Now, then you let man get a hold of this, and we do things. And so the holiest day of the year is November the 1st. And it became a legend, which is not true, but a legend nonetheless, that, all right, well, if the holiest day of the year is November the 1st, what day is the furthest away from November the 1st?
October 31st.
October 31st. And so that was called, and at first it was called All Hallows Eve. Put the apostrophe in, and then after a while you get tired of writing and take it out, Halloween. And that's why supposedly evil is so strong on October the 31st. And so in various traditions, it's a Christian holiday, kind of. It's inspired by what used to be a Christian holiday, okay? So hallow means holy. Reverently be your name. The kingdom come, which in those days Jesus wanted them to pray that his kingdom would come. Your will be done. Okay, let's look at the first part of it. Our Father who is in heaven. I think we've talked about that, but this signifies not only how important God is, but the relationship that God has with us. Okay, our Father who is in heaven. It is not like the relationship that I have with President Trump is not as close as the relationship that I have with God. Because there's no way that I'm going to call any president of the United States Father. Mr. President is, and that came from George Washington, by the way. The Senate called him His Excellency, and he liked the way the House called him Mr. President first, and so that's what it's always been called. And that's a term of respect, I think, and it needs to be given to whoever holds that office. But our Father who is in heaven indicates a relationship that people here have with God. It's a familial one. It's a close one. Our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. All right. Is this something that most people today can pray? Do most people treat the actual name of God as holy, sacred, set apart for God's own use?
Most people?
You said no?
I said most people?
No, they don't.
Nope.
10 Commandments. Thou shalt not use the name of thy Lord in vain. Means uselessly. The Jews took that very seriously. When Moses was speaking to the burning bush, says, "Who shall I say sent me?" And in the King James Bible rendered it, and it's the best way you can. They rendered it, I am. I am has sent you. In other words, this is the name of God, is I am. The Hebrew word for I am, which roughly is Yod He Vav He, or YHVH, or because of Hebrew is the way it is, JHVH. Roughly pronounced, it is Javeh. It is a form of the word to be, which means kind of I am, and sin. Now, the Jews would not speak it. Never would they speak it. And when it was written in the scrolls of the Bible and read aloud, they would refuse to read it out loud. The Hebrew word for simply a lord, somebody who is over someone else, a lord, is Adonai, and that's what they would substitute every time. And when I was studying Hebrew, our Hebrew instructor said that's what we're going to do here because that's just the way it's done. So every time we saw the consonants Yod, He, Vav, He, or YHVH, we would say Adonai when we were reading out loud because that's just the way it was done. What happened is the JHVH and the vowels from Adonai got mixed together to create the word Jehovah. Okay, that's where that came from. Is that wrong? No, that's another name for God. In fact, there's many, many names for God. Descriptions for God, the great I am, the Ancient of Days, he who sits upon the throne, things like that. So what does it mean to keep God's name holy?
You never blaspheme his name.
Which means what?
You never curse his name. You don't swear by his name, but it tells you do not swear anyway.
Hold it in reverence.
Okay, hold it in reverence. First of all, what is it? What is the name of God? If it says, holy be your name, or hallowed be your name, what is the name of God?
I am.
Holy
To us, what is it?
God,
God.
Jehovah.
It's God. That's what we use it. I mean, we call him God. Okay. So, by looking at this, what do we do or what do we not do with the sound that we make that is God?
Well, it should be used, that name should not be brought up unless it's used for the purpose that it is referred to as just him. And it shouldn't be just thrown away around like it's any other everyday word.
Okay, this happened to me. Let's see if it meets your test. There is, do you know what a bell ringer is in school?
Mhm.
An opening assignment. That's what I call it. What it does, I make one that's all week long. They do a little bit of it each day. That when you come in, waiting on the bell, you open it and you start working on it. Okay, that's your opening assignment or the bell ringer. I hate the term bell ringer. The science teacher came up with this cool idea that I used. I ripped it off. He's one of our science teachers. He doesn't have it. You have an assignment for Monday. It's an article. You have to read, summarize, and highlight and all this kind of stuff. You do it electronically now. I took this off because in the instructions, it has the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday assignment. Do with the article, same article all the time. But it says if you miss a day, you have to make it up and do 2 days. OMG, hurry. What does OMG mean
Oh my
in
God.
text message?
Oh my God.
I took it out. I mean, I did put in, if you miss a day, you gotta make it up, but I mean, I just took out the OMG and put you better, you better hurry. But what is that phrase, OMG? Or what it stands for, oh my God.
That's not referencing God at all.
And yet it's found in the Bible, and we sing it too. We sing it in our hymnal.
but it depends on how it's being used.
Okay, how is that being used?
One way is,
reverencing God.
If you use it, you
And the
better be a holy way.
other way is just used very loosely.
Well, that's like someone gets in trouble and they yell Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
And
like, that's not
Jesus
appropriate.
or Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to have a person who worked with me who said, "Oh my Jesus." It's the only person who ever said that. When something bad happened. And what it is it's profanity, and people understand. And profanity is simply taking something that's holy and making it profane or ordinary. There's nothing wrong with the term profanity, and there's nothing wrong with something being profane. Profane is just ordinary stuff that we deal with day to day. You know, your car is profane.
My truck is definitely profane.
Well, and worthy of profanity. No, I wouldn't say that. But what I'm saying is this, if you take something like, it would be like, the stuff in the laws of Moses that was dedicated to God, the laver, the basin, the candlesticks, all that kind of stuff, in the Holy of Holies, if you used them and just had a meal off of them, which is what, where we get the term writing on the wall. Remember the guy with Daniel? The reason things got hairy for him and as the hand started writing is because he took those things, he was the king of Babylon, he took those things, started having a meal with them, you know, and drinking out of them and stuff like that. Just taking something that was for a holy use and making it in a profane use. But there's nothing wrong with the term profanity or profane. I mean, everything that we know of just about is profane. But what it is profanity, and this is the problem with it. I teach a whole lesson on this. It takes about 2 days at school, and I'll boil it down to about 5 minutes. We know as people, most of what we say is unimportant, right? But we want to attach importance to it. So, by using what we have termed as profanity, what you are saying is, I know what I am saying is unimportant, but I want you to attach importance to it, so I'm going to borrow importance from something that is important. So what are our profanity words? You don't have to say them out loud, okay? But it all has to do with God, religion, sex, or bodily functions. No, that's true, right? And I mean, I send kids to the office for this all the time. When they say it, I don't care who you are, how much I like it. You say that word out loud when I hear it, you're gone. You know, and you go down there and you ask to be sent here because you don't use those words. Because I'm saying something that's not important, but to make you think it's important, I'm going to put something in there that you feel strongly about. Most people are grossed out by bodily functions. I know I am. Most people have some very, very strong feelings about sex. And most people have very strong feelings about religion. So if I take one of those things and put it in my speech, that makes what I had to say important, right? That's where it comes from. Shakespeare used it. Folks, there's been dirty words ever since the dawn of time. You take something that people consider important and you shove it in your unimportant sentence to make it sound important. There's some swear words in Shakespeare that aren't swear words anymore. We don't use them. Shakespeare will use the term zounds. It's pronounced zoons or zounds. That is profanity. Because what it is short for is God's wounds. That is the 5 wounds of Jesus on the cross. So what they're doing is, when Shakespeare does it, he's doing it because Shakespeare did not write to the upper class. He was paid by the upper class, but he wrote to the working class people. And they used that a lot because it was profanity, it was swear words. And a lot of what Shakespeare says is cuss words, we just don't think of them as that because they used to be cuss words. They're not anymore. We have new ones, which proves we have an uncanny ability to invent cuss words in every generation. So how would be your name? Do we treat God's name as holy?
Now, you holler OMG all the time.
And well, I mean, if the kids are doing it in text messages and teachers are picking it up and putting it in their worksheets,
Where's the holiness at?
and in all fairness, is there a place in a text message for OMG? What if you're text messaging somebody about the Bible? About the gospel?
What would you put OMG in there for?
Why wouldn't you?
Oh my God, guess what happened?
How about if you're listing the lyrics to that song?
That's the only way.
It's not the only way. There are other ways. When I refer to him, I refer to him as OMG. And that's just, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, with abbreviating it because there's a lot to text, but, but yeah, I mean, it has a place in the email, it has a place in the text, it has a place in probably on the phone, you just say the whole thing. But,
Well, what about saying, thank God it's Friday?
TGIF.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? If you truly are thanking God that it's Friday, and in all fairness, I can see in some ways we're saying that, very few now, we're saying that would be perfectly wonderful to say. Right before we came over here, we were watching CNN. Donna and Dad have hooked on it here lately, but they're doing the thing about people living paycheck to paycheck and going to these food drives because they're not having enough, they're not making enough money, like waitresses and stuff like that. They're not making enough money. So I can understand somebody who gets paid on Friday saying that. I've made it. Thank the good Lord it's Friday. I've made it through the week and I've fed my family all week long. I think that would be perfectly appropriate.
But I don't think, I mean, when I hear that, it's just, to me, it sounds just loose.
To me, it sounds like you're glad the work week is over and you get down to some heavy duty partying on a weekend.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Which is where the TGIF restaurant name came into being.
Right.
But,
And then, you say, oh my God, such and such, and it's just, I don't think that the average person has God in that statement. It's just used very loosely.
I'll agree with you that the preponderance of the time it's used, yeah. But I can see the very few occasions where it could be used in sincerity and appropriate.
Well, until you brought it up about swearing, I'm guilty of it. You get frustrated with something, you say, I swear,
Mm-hmm.
or I swan.
Well, using the Lord's name in vain, the swanny and swear thing, we tend to do that too.
But I didn't think that, I swanny is,
Well,
bad, but, in the reality it is because it's
what
just
about
another word.
using, instead of saying God's name, instead of saying, oh my God, like that, what if you substitute, say, qualities of God?
Well, if you make.
Oh, mercy.
Yeah, but isn't that, oh mercy,
Does it have anything to do with what you're saying? Does mercy?
or, well, is that wrong, or, oh my goodness?
If you make up a new
You tell
word.
me.
Well, really, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It is
And-
wrong because you're using God's name by proxy, is what you're doing.
Right, and,
Well, like a lot of people will make up a word to fit that bad word.
well, that's
You
why
mean the same
I
thing.
use.
I think the
Swan.
I think the Swanee thing is an effort to go in the right direction. I honestly do.
Well, I try.
Well, I'm
you
saying,
said
I'm
first.
saying it's an effort to go in the right direction. But when you're saying, and again, I don't want to make me Christian harder on you, but when you're saying, oh my goodness, you're, without knowing it probably, you're saying, oh my God,
Yeah,
or, oh my gracious. Because when you think about it, if you look at the literal definition of goodness, mercy, gracious, all that kind of stuff, has nothing to do with what you're saying, right?
well, when somebody sneezes, you say gracious.
Say gesundheit.
I mean, it's just, that part,
To be
I
honest
mean,
with you, I'm making it harder, because gesundheit, when somebody sneezes, is German for God bless you.
So do you think they had a good point for trying not to make it trivial to say his name? Do you think that's why they did it, so they wouldn't?
Who's they?
Israelites.
Yeah, they certainly, now you can criticize the Israelites, the Jews, all you want, and they did make some mistakes. But they were very good about that, about keeping the name of God holy. They refused to even say it. In fact, when I told you I will attempt to say it as Yahweh, I don't know if that's true or not, because nobody has said it in thousands of years. So,
No one knows how to say it.
right, I would imagine the last guy that ever really said it out loud, it was Moses.
So just calling God our Father.
Well, that denotes the relationship we have with God. And again, I don't think that God ever meant for nobody to use his name. I think that the Jews did what they normally did. They took a command of God and they built a fence around it. You know, it says don't use the name of God in vain. We won't just use it at all. That's a fence. We won't get to that point. But, so we can never use it in vain if we never say it. But I don't think that God ever intended anybody to use his name. I think probably that God expected it to be used in a holy way. There would be certainly nothing wrong with calling on the name of God in prayer, or in singing about the name of God, or in praise, or talking about it in praising him. But the Jews thought, I mean, I think it's a step in the right direction, but they may have gone a little too far. It just, if you can't use it in vain, we just won't say it, we never will. All right? But I think a lot of the times that we attempt to put it in, we have, and this addresses what you're talking about, Lisa, we have in our language this necessity to use expletives. That's what they're called grammatically, but they are useless words to draw attention to a lot of emotion and stuff that we're saying. And they're really not necessary.
but I'm not, I mean,
It's
when I say, Swanee and stuff like that, I mean, I'm not trying to draw attention to myself.
I know.
I'm just,
You're
I'm
using-
expressing how I'm feeling, but I mean, it's not,
You're using an expletive and trying not to disobey what the Bible says.
right.
You know, if you look for whether I have a problem with it or not, which is unimportant, I don't.
Well,
that, it looks
my
like-
problem is, does God have a problem with me, you know,
you know-
having that, saying that?
I wouldn't think so. As long as it's a progression, I mean, I wouldn't, you know, I really don't think, and I'm guilty of it myself, but I really don't believe that it really is all that necessary for anybody to use expletives in any way, shape, or form. I think that goes back to what Jesus said about swearing. You shouldn't swear by anything. Your yes should be yes, your no should be no.
Right.
And if you say it, that's it. And if you say it is yes, you say it is no, you say it is, you say it ain't, whatever, that should be enough. it should not be necessary to use expletives. Because quite frankly, without using any kind of expletive, and again, there's a lot of expletives that are perfectly fine, but if you don't use them, isn't it obvious that you feel very strongly about something anyway? I mean, even if you don't use them. I mean, what can I mean, you're like a Georgia fan, right?
Kinda.
Okay, well, I mean, and in all fairness, you've been a Georgia fan for how long? It's kind of a big deal for you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you feel strongly about, I'm funny about this.
I'm a Dotson fan.
Okay, well, let me use the Georgia thing first, okay? So that makes you a Bulldog fan. If you speak about that, because after all, where did you get this from? Where did you get this devotion to the football team, or the school UGA from?
TV.
Got it from your television parents, maybe, and it's always been a part of your growing up? When you talk about that, don't people understand how strongly you feel?
Yeah.
Do you have to use I swear I am? Or do you
No.
have to use OMG I am or anything like that? You don't really, they're not really necessary. Okay? There's a lot of things that we feel strongly about. That when we speak of them, it's obvious that we feel strongly about. You do not have to use expletives, but we've gotten in the habit as people to do it. And unfortunately, we've gotten in that habit so bad that when we feel strongly about something, we put God in it, we put pee in it, we put poop in it, and we put sex in it.
We put Satan in it.
Now,
No.
I put Satan in it.
Hell,
Oh, hell.
Well, yeah, that's true too. Yeah, I guess that's what we put Satan in it. So, I mean, do you see what I'm saying? We tend to put that in it, but it's not really necessary. We just do it as a, now, don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. I think it's just like anything else in our lives that we need to work on. You know, if you have a tendency to exceed the speed limit, that's wrong too.
Yeah.
Work on it. Okay, if you have a tendency to do this, that, whatever it is, work on it. I had a kid that I had to testify at his expulsion hearing. And I love this kid. I really did. I spent a whole semester with him. And he loves me now too. He works at an oil changing place that I don't use, but Donna does. And we go over there. He runs, wants to do our car and everything. His name's Josh. I won't say anything else. He was raised in a home that used the F word about as often as y'all use the word D. Okay? Constantly. I saw where this was going. Okay? I sat the other kids, I don't like him anyway. He just won a great class. I liked him, I liked a couple other kids, but I put him on the other side of the room and I put him right beside my desk. And I mean, he forgot. I mean, he was such a habit over and over and over and over again. Josh, sorry, I can apologize. And you know, and he kept going. Finally, he would catch himself. About halfway through the semester, it took us a while. He would catch himself beginning the F part of the word, you know? And he would do what you're doing with the swan, he would substitute something else. And then by the end of the semester, I noticed that he really was catching himself before he said it. It was working. You know? You can do it because it really isn't all that necessary to say expletives anyway to communicate. They really take away from what you're saying instead of adding to like we think they do.
It does. It takes away bad because I look at someone who uses a lot of profanity, they feel full of ignorance.
Well, the thing is, ignorance could be a word, but you can also say that they know what they're saying is unimportant.
Bob Oswald used to say it was a lazy mind.
Well, yeah, it is a lazy mind.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that too. Because Bob is a guy that I kind of admire. I've never been one of these guys too often because I'm not able. I keep trying to be. But Bob was a guy who was a pragmatist. He could reason, and he wouldn't have to use any expletives. And expletive is not a bad word. It's just he wouldn't have to add anything to what he said. I mean, because Bob and I, agreed on almost everything. There not only disagreed on stuff, and we would sit and talk with it for about a long, long time. And there are some things that when he passed away, we still disagreed on, but he knew why he believed what he believed or didn't believe and he could tell you, and he never had to say, you have my word on that. Or what I say is, and I shouldn't, well, to tell you the truth. That's an expletive too, right? I say that all the time. And I hate doing that because if I'm talking, that's not going to help. I mean, you either know I'm telling you the truth or you know I'm not going to tell the truth, but me saying it is not going to help. In fact, it sort of makes you think.
You don't tell the truth all the time.
So you're lying to me?
That's what okay, Lisa, what would you say if I came up, well, maybe not me, but a stranger came up to you and said, Lisa, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not lying. But I want you to remember while I'm telling you this, I'm not lying. Okay, you believe I'm not lying, right? Well, I'm telling you this. What do you know for a fact?
They're trying to.
He's lying.
Trying to cover up something.
What did Mark Twain say? The more he told us how honest he is, the quicker we counted our silverware. And that's the truth. And I say it all the time, well, to tell you the truth. Which is better than saying something like, to tell you the God's honest truth.
I've heard that before.
There's a guy that I know of, and I'm not going to say who he is. He's a Facebook friend. And he and I have had a long relationship, and not much of it good. But he's always in Facebook telling people, I'm not a racist. Okay? He says, now I want you to know I'm not a racist. What do you know about him? He's a racist. I mean, it's pure and simple, he is. It's something he has to work on. But he wants people to think, I'm not a racist. If you're doing that over and over and over and over again,
There's a reason.
I doubt you. But I do it. I say, tell you the truth. Which means, I've got to tell you this, because I know before I talk, you think I'm lying. And I shouldn't say that, but I've gotten in the habit of speech. You don't need expletives. If you believe strongly in something, people know it. People know it.
I mean, you can be out here and say, you're just not going to believe this.
You're right.
And really, in that case, though, I probably would, because that's an expletive and that's a manner of speech that we use to say, I saw one of the weirdest things and I want you to know what I saw. You're not going to believe it. And to be honest, in our society, I just said it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's a habit I've got and I got to get out of. I've been working on it for a very short time now, about a year. But that's the thing in our society, in our way of speech. You're not going to believe this, but then I know this is going to be true. Because that's something, what they're saying is, I saw something you never would believe. I saw one of the most odd things that is absolutely the truth. And 90% of that is probably true. You're not going to believe this, but it's a manner of speech. And folks, how often does speech change? All right. Christmas time. You go out and you kill a tree and you bring it in your house. You put lights on it.
And then you try to keep it alive.
No, the world doesn't allow a bird.
You're right.
Okay.
Just for a short time, dude.
Now, it's supposed to be celebrating the birth of Jesus, right? Isn't that why we turned out the holiday? You show me in the Bible where there's any tree with lights and decorations on it.
Orange tree was one that Jesus was nailed to, and the light was him.
Okay, but that's not where we're going with this. Okay, in the Bethlehem story, there's no tree.
No,
How'd the tree get in there? The
somebody
druids.
added it.
The druids that used to believe, and you can see why the druids would believe this, it's a pagan thing. In wintertime, all the forest dies, except for
Evergreen.
the evergreen. They believed that these were the immortal spirits of their ancestors, so they would pay homage to them every winter. And on the longest day, the shortest day of the year, they thought was the most holy, which is December the 21st
First.
or 2nd. First, I think it changes, to be honest with you, from the 1st to 2nd, depending, because we don't go around the sun in exactly a year, but they knew, so they would do it on that day, which is near December 25th. So over the course of time, the tree got into the celebration of Jesus' birth. Okay, how often do we celebrate Christmas?
Once a year.
Once a year. It's a long celebration. I mean, I saw Christmas trees for sale at the beginning of October at the dollar store. But once a year. Okay. And if this tree got in there with the manger and stuff, how often do we speak, listen, read, or write? Well, if the holiday that we celebrate once a year changes, if we celebrate only once a year, how often is language going to change?
Constant.
Daily. When your cell phone, when you end a call, what do you do?
Hang up.
No, you don't.
Bye.
You don't hang anything or go up.
You punch a button.
But you say hang up, don't you? You know why? Because that's what we used to do. Now, since our Georgia law, and I use Android Auto in the car, if I say call whoever on my cell phone, I'm not supposed to look at, but I do. When it's connecting the call, what does it say?
Calling.
Now mine doesn't say calling, it says something else.
Dialing?
It says dialing. Dialing.
No, dial no more either. Dial phone's been gone for
No,
years.
but dialing, you and I both know, and every kid knows, even though they've never done it, they know that you're connecting a phone call, right? It's a leftover. Okay? That's a leftover. So language changes. We keep a little bit of the old, we get a little, and what I always use is there was an old expletive, which means I fooled you. And it was in the 20s. Bazinga.
Oh, no.
Oh, I forgot.
That one died. And then the Big Bang Theory got so popular, and Sheldon said it all the time on the Big Bang Theory. Now it's back. We resurrected it. That show did it. I've got kids with shirts that say Bazinga on them. That's cool. It's a new word again. Language changes that quickly. And our expletives change that quickly too. You know, the S word, it comes from a Middle English word that actually started with a B. Okay? I'm not gonna say it. But it started with a B. And it just slowly, in the course of time, it meant the same thing. People changed it into a nasty word now.
Well, I knew people from overseas, and we would go through our slang. I would say, like, I gave somebody down the road, and they said, "What does that mean? What'd you do down the road?" And I said, "That means tell them all." And she says, "Oh, okay." And then she said, "We were like a house on fire," meaning we got long growth. And I'm like, "Whoa, pew."
When Tom says, I saw him he got into an argument and he CC'd me with another preacher and said, if we continue in this, we may be burning our clothes.
Really? Burning the bridge out here, the clothes.
Well, burning a bridge, that doesn't mean anything to anybody but us. That's but basically what he meant was this cliche that we use. What we may be doing is throwing out the baby with the bath, or cutting our nose to spite our face, or something like that. Doing something uselessly, hurting ourselves for no good reason. That's what he was talking about. But we don't use that in Nigeria. They do. Last thing I'm going to say is right now there is a huge, big problem in Nigeria, and it's even actually made our news, and nothing makes our news because we don't care about Africa in this country. We don't, unless it's Egypt or South Africa. But it's something dangerous. The police, there was not a riot, but a protest at a toll road. I don't know what it was about, but the people were protesting. The police were supposed to use blanks and non-lethal rounds, and they were issued lethal rounds, and several people were killed. Which means there's going to be riots now, and that's something that Tom is having to deal with right now, along with the Basiama having to deal with the civil war that's still raging. What's your invitation, Tom?
166. Oh, that's good. Sorry,
There was 3.
Somebody tell me what it is.
166.
166.
Should have left that alone. You already got a good one figured out, I'm sure.
All right, in a minute, we'll see the first verse of that, and if you stand in need, please respond. Let's together we stand.
Oh, worship the King, all glorious above, and gratefully sing His wonderful love. Our shield and defender, the Ancient of Days, pavilioned in splendor and girded with praise.
Shall we pray? Almighty God, Father of all, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all our many blessings. We pray, Heavenly Father, that you will heal our world. There are problems going on all over the world, including in our own country. We ask, Heavenly Father, for unity, and we ask, Heavenly Father, for peace. Please continue to care for us, be with us always. Please help those who are in charge to cure and to stop this deadly pandemic that we're in now. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right, ladies' luncheon December 12th at noon. That's about all we got coming up. Is there anything else?
Yeah, Lauren and her boyfriend were supposed to come to church tonight, but he got sick. And they were supposed to leave tomorrow to go to Virginia to let Lauren meet some family of his.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna call when I get home and see.
And y'all weren't here. Dana's having surgery on her hand Tuesday.
What's wrong with you? Oh,
She was trying to do stunts.
Yeah.
you should call me. I give skateboard lessons very cheap. I never rode one in my life. I know how to do it.
That's all right. I'm done over it.
Well,
I won't be getting them back on one end.
don't say that.
Thank you, Joe.
Whatever, we was
I
getting
didn't
one
say
for Christmas.
never. I just said never won't.
Hey, it's another cliche, you gotta get back on the horse.
Yeah, right.
Right,
She already did that one time when she was little. My aunt rented us a pony named Dynamite. And that thing put her down the road. They had just paved the street. And he took off with her and she fell off and her foot was dragging in the stirrup. And I mean, he was going to town with her.
You need the one that can power pull.
Well, listen now,
Need a
Let's
seatbelt,
go.
need a seatbelt on that, buddy.
let's Hattie come to find out it was having a fair over there. So my aunt took us to the fair, and I want you to know that child got right back on that same one
Lisa, I want
and
you
rode
to
him
know.
around the ring.
So she did get back on the
Lift
list.
pad, she told us, I want you to know.
We all do it. Although bless Patty, I've never,
Well, it's just something I say.
I think you're the only person I've ever heard say it.
So Tuesday, you said?
Yeah, Tuesday.
Have your prayers.
Thank you.
They get you fixed up, get you feeling better.
Yep, I hope so soon. Well, I got up to 6 weeks after, right?